Sam Lynch, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So I was just listening to your new LP, and it is really beautiful. I actually just I was on Spotify, and I said, hey, I actually want to listen to this whole thing, just like on like maybe a nice drive or something like that. It's like it's great, just kind of ponderous music. I feel like I feel like the perfect, and I hope you take this in the best way possible. I feel like a comfortable day where it's raining outside, I would like to listen to this album. You know what I mean?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we talk about that, why didn't you take us back and just let us know how you got into music?
Sure. Well, I've been playing music and writing music on and off since I was quite young. It was always kind of like in and out, kind of interspersed with different phases of my life. But I guess probably earliest songwriting that I remember would have been like when I was a preteen, very angsty. I mean, not much has changed, but yeah, that's probably like when I first started songwriting. And then I took a really long break from that. I was mostly doing theater through high school and then into university as well. And then it wasn't until I graduated university that I kind of circled back to songwriting. So yeah.
Was there any singing in that theater time?
Not really. I'm not really a musical theater buff. And I don't necessarily have like the quintessential musical theater voice. I loved my vocal training in the sense that I loved learning how to like integrate breath into your singing, but
Right.
yeah, not really. I was more of like just like the drama, say it straight.
Yeah. Okay. So not the like Broadway, musical theater. I mean that makes sense because it doesn't sound, your music doesn't sound like that.
I appreciate it in its own sense, but it's just not really my
Sure,
thing.
I can enjoy Hamilton or something like that. You said preteen when you first started writing music. Was that around like 12-ish, like 11, 12? What is that, like 7th grade-ish?
Yeah, I'd say around there, like grade 6, grade 7.
And you grew up in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do they call that middle school in Canada too? We call it middle
Um,
school in the States.
we just have, well, in my specific province, I believe we just have elementary school and high school.
Mm.
No
High school starts at 11th or 9th also?
8 for us. High school is grade 8. So it's just full blast in the height of your prepubescent awkward shitstorm, just like straight into high school.
Right. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I feel like in middle school, like 6th grade always seemed kind of a world away from 8th grade. So they even separated the kids at my particular middle school. So 8th grade is probably a good time to get into high school, maybe. So you said it was angsty. When I listen to your music, maybe lyrically wise, it's angsty, but it doesn't feel angsty as far as the instrumentation goes. Coming from someone who listened to a lot of punk rock growing up. So was your music a little rougher back then also, or are you talking mostly like lyrical content?
Mostly lyrically. And I think it was also informed by what I was listening to. Like I listened to like a lot of what was on the radio. And a lot of also what my parents listened to when I was growing up. But when I was a preteen and like early teen, I listened to a lot of like pop punk, I guess.
Yeah.
As well as like some like more heavy punk music. I think that was mostly informed by someone that I was seeing when I was quite young and impressionable. But I think that like those themes kind of like seeped their way into my early writing. I don't know. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, when you just start listening to, maybe punk rock, pop punk seems like punk, you know? So, you know,
Yeah.
and those angsty themes are there. So pop punk around, so what was that, like Avril Lavigne kind of pop punk, like Blink 182, Sum 41, that kind of pop
Got it.
punk,
Like little
Green Day?
Fall Out Boy, little
Uh-huh.
Green Day, little. Oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's amazing how many great artists I know readily admit their adolescent influences nowadays. Because
Absolutely.
I remember when I was in high school, I feel like you would never admit it. You know, you'd be like, so it's kind of
Yeah.
cool that no one cares anymore. You know,
I
at
mean,
least
I
a lot
don't
of
know.
people don't.
I recently listened back to Avril's first record, and it
Oh.
stands up.
I think
I'm a
if
fan.
I don't know if you're on TikTok at all, but one of her songs is just like re-blowing up all over TikTok again. So
Good for her. That's
it's
great.
more relevant than ever.
Great.
That there's totally a resurgence of that going on.
Hmm.
So you do a little bit of that, and what were you writing? Were you playing piano? Were you playing a guitar? Were you what kind of music were you writing to these lyrics?
Like in the earliest days, guitar mostly when I was
Hmm.
writing songs, and like using as few strings as possible. So like
Uh-huh.
power chord central.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. So yeah.
That's what's beautiful about punk. I feel like it really made, I remember being in high school and being like, I could play this, I could do this, you know, like
Totally.
I can be a musician, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you learn that first power chord, you're like, oh, I can play every song I like.
Yeah.
So you take a break after writing some songs, and how many songs did you write? Were you writing, did you write a bunch of songs, or was it kind of, you know, did you complete a bunch of songs back then?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I can remember, I think it's funny looking back because at that time, I don't think because I wasn't writing for any end goal in mind. I was just writing songs for the sake of writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know, to be honest. Like
Mm-hmm.
probably quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
But probably in the sense that I would like write it, play it once, and then be like, great, on to the next.
Mm.
So yeah, so I don't know if, and I also like hazard to even call them songs.
Right.
I'm sure some of them were probably questionable, but no, I don't. Truthfully, I don't really remember like my earliest songs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then when I was in high school, I did like write and record a handful of like very dramatic, overly emotional songs.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure my mom has like held onto a copy or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have these lying around anywhere?
Like I hope they. No, I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say I hope they don't see the light of day, but that's not true. I mean, it's very much like representative of where I was at the time,
Right, right.
and like I was a child, and that's fine. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Were you playing these songs for your parents or for your friends, or were you at least like showing these songs when you were done with them to people?
When I was in high school, whenever I kind of like got the nerve up, I would ask my mom to drive me out to. So I was living in Surrey,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I would ask my mom to drive me out to this open mic in White Rock, so like very far away
Mm-hmm.
from where I lived.
Uh-huh.
Um, to play these songs at this open mic, like in hopes that I wouldn't know anybody.
Is that why? Is like where their open mics maybe closer by, but you were just trying to get away from anyone actually seeing you that you knew?
Yeah, I think so.
And
But then
this was high
also,
school?
yeah, this was high
Okay.
school. And I think it was also like I found this open mic and I just like went a few times and like would
Mm-hmm.
sit and watch and listen. And it kind of like, it felt like a nice, like friendly scene. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of like how I first started sharing songs, and it honestly it felt kind of nice, and it was my first experience I think playing to like what felt like an audience, like a removed audience, because when you're sitting and you're playing your songs for like your friends or your family or whatever, it's like it's a whole nother level of self-conscious
That's
because
true.
it's like they know you,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, I think that was something that when I was in high school and also when I was in university that I always really loved about theater because even if it was your friends, your family who were also in the audience, there was this level of separation because you were somebody else on stage. You're performing this piece and you are stepping into somebody else's shoes. But when you're playing music, it's you. It's just it's you, and there's no like really layer in between. So I think I found comfort in like having that level of separation of just like playing to strangers, even if it was just a handful.
Yeah. That's cool though. I mean, that shows that you were really serious about it. You know, you were asking your mom to drive you somewhere so you could perform, you know? So you were definitely thinking about it already. But then you took a break and you, you know, did the theater thing for a little while. Do you think, was there a reason for that? Did you were you just kind of over it, or, you know, were you really enjoying theater that much where you're like, I think I might like this better, or what happened in those few years?
Well, it's hard to say really. So when I first started university, I was actually, originally the plan was to complete a degree in psychology. And so I did 2 years of that. And then it was in my third year that I actually switched into the Faculty of Theater. And I think for me, it was kind of like I had this like moment of reckoning where I was just like, I don't think I want to do this for my career. Like I found it really interesting learning about human psychology, and I found it like I found all the case studies so interesting, and yet I always felt pulled to do these like other creative things, but it was always on the outside of my life. Like it was always on the periphery. I would dance, and I would, you know, act in the community theater, and I would like sing, you know, alongside some other like people that I found while I was going to school. And it was always on the edges. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, I've never pulled these things to the center of my life. Like I've never given it a true chance to like be in the center and be at the forefront. And so I don't know, I think I was really unhappy like learning in the way that I was learning, and like very textbook driven and very like super academia focused, and and I just kind of felt compelled to change it up. I don't know, it was kind of like this is your chance, like what are you doing? So
so you start doing theater, you know, a much more creative outlet, and then did it kind of, once you were there, were you just kind of like, well, I even like music, so maybe I'll go even further, like lean even further into this creative kind of compulsion? Is that kind of what happened?
It was more after I graduated university. Actually, I didn't do a ton of writing or like musically performing when I was in university, because essentially because I transferred into the theater department a little bit late, it was quite immersive. And I'm also the type of person that like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna like fully do it, or like to the best of my ability. So when I was in the theater program, I was like, okay, well, I want to get everything that I can out of this program. And so I was doing like a little bit of everything. And so, which I think is actually like shown up in my creative process now down the line, like my directing experience, my stage management experience, and my front of house experience, and acting and voice and movement and all of that. So, yeah, but it wasn't really until after I graduated, I went traveling. I did the like classic, I've graduated, now what?
Euro trip or something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Quit my job, like sold all my stuff.
Nice, yes.
Went to Europe.
Got it.
Not like a unique story, but yeah, it wasn't really until I was on that trip where it was kind of like everything that I knew and everything that had been like providing structure in my life, whether I'd known it or not, was just like totally wiped. Then I was like, oh, this keeps coming up. Like I keep thinking about music and how it's like, it's always been there, but I've never done that. So
were you, at least this whole time though, were you at least like picking up the guitar every now and then and just like you know, like playing here and there? Like it wasn't like fully just like off the table, right?
No, it was never fully off the table, but it was never fully on the tape.
Right. Right. You weren't focusing on it. You weren't driven to pursue it. Well, that's cool. I mean, you kept your chops up a little bit, I'm sure. And then so after you broadened your horizons, overseas and came back, was it kind of very soon after that where you like was there kind of like a revelation while you were traveling, and then you came back and you're like, I'm gonna start doing this more?
Yeah, I mean, without like hitting the cliche too hard, it was like
Mhm.
I yeah, I don't know, it was something about just like being away from home for the first like elongated period of time,
Mhm.
and like meeting so many new people and being in so many new spaces, and it just sort of gave me this like clearer vision that I hadn't experienced in a really long time.
Mm.
And yeah, so when I got back, I really like hit the ground running, I would say, like for better or for worse. Like
Mhm.
I had no idea what I was doing in terms of like a career in music. And so I think it's safe to say like the learning curve was steep.
Yeah.
And um, it's funny, like looking back now, like, 4 or 5 years ago, I was just like doing everything that I thought was the right the right thing to do. Like I just
Mhm.
was trying to do everything, but I also was just like fully faking it. And I think, I mean, I am still now. I feel like everyone is to a certain
Sure.
degree,
Yeah,
but
you got to.
yeah.
It's part of it.
Yeah, but I feel like that was kind of like my angle, was just I'm going to just throw myself into this, because I think there was part of me also that felt like I was already behind, as much as I like try to let that go now, and like recognize that like you're on your own timeline, and like there's no sense in like playing the comparison game. But I think there was that feeling of like I need to play catch up right now. Like I need to like really dig in and like understand this industry that I've like decided to throw myself into kind of like last minute.
Mhm.
It felt like
Sure.
yeah.
Did you feel like you were equipped musically also? Were you, because for someone who, I mean, you were playing pretty early, eighth grade, and even writing at that point. So you definitely, you had skills enough to do that. But did you feel like, besides the business part, also like I need to like really, drill down and start playing a lot to like to get caught up in that regard also?
Yeah, absolutely. Um Yeah, and I think like I still feel that way, and I hope that I will always feel that way,
Mhm.
because I don't think that it does you any good to feel like you've hit your ceiling, or like you've plateaued, or I feel like there's always more that you can learn.
Totally.
So yes, I definitely did feel like I need to play catch up in that regard 100%, but
Hmm.
I also felt like like you said, like music has always been in my life, and so I was really trying to like remind myself of that. Like it wasn't like I was just starting
Right.
from like absolutely square one. And
Right.
I think something too that I've like been reminding myself, especially this year, to be honest, that like everything that I've done, and like all of the learning that I've done, regardless of if it was like specifically pertaining to music or not, informs my like path and my process as a musician.
Yeah.
So yeah, so to answer your question, yes, I definitely felt like I needed to like really like buckle down. But I also felt like I wasn't totally void of like a foundation.
Right. Reminding yourself that, hey, this is part of me. This is part of my adolescence.
Yeah,
I,
totally.
this is me, just
Yeah.
reminding yourself that, and also, but I do like what you said about, regardless of where you are, if I was understanding you correctly, that's kind of, that's, that informs what you're making at that moment. I
Yeah.
like that. It's just, I am what I am at this moment, and this is what that person is making.
Totally.
So this is a person who had that story that you just told us, and
Yeah.
this is the music that she makes. So I love that point of view. So what were some of the interesting points that maybe you picked up that you can remember, about the business that you were like, oh, okay, I got to remember that, going forward. Do you remember any of those light bulb moments once you started actually, thinking about music like a business?
Like earlier?
Yeah.
Or
Or, somewhere in the middle,
I mean, I still feel like I'm early. So
Right. Yeah.
um hmm.
I would say after you got back and you really just started, going for it, what were some of your first like thoughts? Like, were you just like, okay, got to write songs? Do I need to start booking shows? Do I need a manager to help me? Do I need, what were some of those first steps that you took?
Well, I tried to do it all of the things,
Mm-hmm.
everything. So yes, I got, when I got back, I started writing more songs. I started playing at more open mics, like in the city,
Mm.
and made it like a weekly thing
Mm.
where I was like, okay, like every Thursday, I go to this place. That's what I do. I would like put put my amp in an Evo
Mm-hmm.
and like drive it down. Or no, it was the car to goes, which was even more hilarious. Like
Mm-hmm.
shoving my guitar and amp into this tiny smart car
Mm-hmm.
and like driving it down every week, just so that I could like make it more of like a practice of just playing in front of other people.
Right.
Yeah, what were some other things that I like learned though? I think it was more just like learning how to take myself seriously as as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that was like something that I learned early on, was that there are so many moving parts, and especially when you're starting out, like I don't think that my personal opinion is that it does you way more good to learn at least how to like kind of work your way through multiple parts of the industry
Mm.
before you get somebody on your team to help you with it. So
Sure.
I was doing like I was booking like tours and
Mm-hmm.
like making my own like artwork
Mm-hmm.
and um doing kind of like all of those back end things, a lot of which like I still love to be involved in now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, I think that was something. So like, learning how to like incorporate myself as a sole proprietorship and like take myself more seriously in that regard. And I think that that like overall helped just like take everything more seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started booking tours then. How long was it before you were like, all right, I've done enough of these open mics. I'm gonna book a tour and start traveling a little bit.
Actually, so the first tour that I ever played or that I ever went on, was with two of my friends, one of which I had met at that open mic.
Mm.
And so it was like after we met there and then started playing some bigger shows in town. But in Vancouver, it's a little tricky. I am like trying not to think too hard about kind of like the state of where live venues will be
Right.
in who knows how long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when I was kind of really first like buckling down, there are a lot of like very, very small listening rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are a lot of like amazing like 500 plus cap rooms.
Mm-hmm.
But there aren't a ton of mid-range venues.
Mm.
And so I found like once I felt like I had played a lot of the smaller listening rooms a couple times, it's like you don't want to. I felt like, oh, I keep posting about the same place, or like, oh, I'm in the same place again.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it was more like I knew I wanted to like try going on tour, but it was also like I'm sick of myself. Like I'm sick of myself posting about the same places. So
yeah.
So it was myself and two of my really good friends, and we kind of like shared the responsibilities and had like the most insane Google Doc going, and we booked yeah, like a 30 show tour around BC and Alberta, and yeah, it
Wow,
was great.
that's awesome.
Mm.
So tell us a little bit about, so after that, or during that, you've been releasing a couple singles the last couple years, and now you got a full LP that you just dropped. So tell us a little bit about Little Disappearances, the LP.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm very happy it's out. It was it took both a very long time and very short spurts of time to make. Um, yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I think that it represents kind of like the last like year and a half, 2 years of my life, kind of in a nutshell. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's beautiful music. I Like I said, I'm looking forward to listening to the whole thing kind of more carefully, maybe on a drive or something like that. I feel like it's good driving music, or good home on a rainy day music or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe cooking in the kitchen and listening to some music or something like that. But I read that you recorded some of it just at home, and then other parts of it in a great studio. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that mix and how that worked.
Yeah. So 5 of the 7 songs were recorded in Montreal, with a producer, Sam Woywitka. Um, yes, mostly based out of Studio Mixart was our
Hmm.
main kind of like recording studio, and so we tracked just like the bed tracks over a couple days, and then moved into a couple different studios in Montreal to do some overdubs, and so that was, yeah, 5 of the 7 were in Montreal, and then I did all of my vocals at home because I am picky.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I wanted to take my time.
Hmm.
Uh, and we have a decent setup here at
Hmm.
home, so I felt really comfortable knowing that I would get like good quality vocals and also be able to take my time.
Yeah.
And then 2 of the other songs were recorded at Monarch Studio here in Vancouver. Yeah, and so just like kind of one day each for those songs, and then again just vocals at home. So yeah, and then kind of throughout like overdubs, also like listening back to things and being like, no, it needs this, and so then I would kind of just tinker at home.
Yeah, the production sounds great, and I think that mixture. It sounds like, so you probably recorded a lot of the instrumentation at the studio and a lot of the vocal kind of tweaks and maybe post adjustments at home, just
Hmm.
when you don't feel the pressure of everybody around you and you can just kind of be obsessive about it by yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds good. The attention to detail sounds great. So that comes through. So very cool. And then you also just dropped your Keeping Time music video. So how was filming that?
Yeah, it was great. It was cold,
Hmm.
um, but great. Yeah, we recorded it the same week that the record came out, and so it was nice because it felt like, I mean, obviously right now like times are very different, and so it felt kind of strange knowing that the record was going to come out like essentially purely online, um,
Hmm.
and like there not really be like a human interactive follow up.
Hmm.
So it felt really nice to like do a thing,
Hmm.
and like
Yeah.
make something with
Yeah.
other
To do
people.
something in 2020.
Do something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it just kind of felt nice to do. And I was really lucky with the small little team that I pulled together for the video, and it was my first self-directed video, which was
Mm.
very cool as well. And yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. The treatment on it looks great. It's got a very cinematic feel, I feel like.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
So, Sam,
Yeah.
we will be listening to your LP and checking out the new video. Wanted to ask you though, before we let you go today, if you
Mhm.
had one piece of advice to give to aspiring artists, what would it be?
Just make what you want. Just make what you want to make, and then find the people who believe in you and are excited about it, and just like keep doing that.
It's great advice. It's only, it's music, it's
Yeah.
why would you be doing it if you're making something that, to be doing such to follow a path like music and not actually be doing the type of music that you want to be doing, it just seems so ironic.
Bringing it backward.